Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Mondays with Michelle video. This week's topic, tax records, what they are, where to find them, and how you can use them in your research. Join us as we take a closer look at some hearth tax, window tax, and poor rate documents. Let's get started. So what I thought I'd talk about today is some of the records available for taxation, because many of you, I'm not that fortunate, but I know many of you have traced your family lines back to the early 1700s, 1600s, and it gets a little challenging to find sources to identify our ancestors, and tax records are great resources to help identify where your ancestors were in a particular time. And often you can use them kind of like directories, where I showed you a few weeks ago how I use the annual directories, the Prairie Province directories, to actually trace where my great-grandfather was from year to year. So I was able to identify where they worked, where they were living, and when they came to Vancouver from Edmonton, Alberta. You can use the tax records in a similar way. So what I'm going to show you today is just give you an idea of the scope of records that are available. So this particular article, what I liked about it is it does give an overview of a few of the most common tax records. So there are hearth taxes, which was literally they counted up the number of hearths and levied a tax based on the number of hearths. Similarly, window taxes, they counted up the number of windows in your dwelling and taxed you. So what I thought was interesting, they said both the hearth and window tax caused people to get very creative architecturally to avoid paying taxes. So for example, you see in this picture, it was not uncommon for people to cover up the windows to avoid paying as much tax. And similarly for hearths, they would end up basically just building a fire underneath the chimney, but not actually have a hearth so that they could avoid the hearth tax. We've talked previously about land taxes and the valuation records, but certainly those are three taxes that many people are aware of. And the hearth and window taxes, because they're from the 1600s, late 1600s, they often serve as a way of being able to identify your ancestors a little bit further back. But there are other records. Now, if you search in the catalog for Find My Past, they do have some. You can see it's primarily land tax records. They do have hearth tax for Northamptonshire, and they have the City of York hearth and window tax. Ancestry, if I search on tax in the keyword, they have a little bit more variety of records, but still not an awful lot. They've got pipe rolls, death duty registers, apprenticeship tax. So there are a few others, but by far, Family Search has the most available. And I want to point out a few of the research wiki guides. So as I've mentioned before, on the Family Search free website, if you go to search, go to Research Wiki, and then type in your keyword. I searched on tax, England tax, England taxation. And what I like about this particular reference page, it gives some information on some of the common taxes, window tax, there was a marriage tax, but what I really like is this timeline. So this is giving you not just taxes, but other types of records that will give lists of names, which as genealogists, that's what we're interested in, is those records that are going to name our ancestors. So you can see all of the different taxes or records and their dates. So some of the ones I thought were quite interesting when you look through all of the lists here. They had a hair powder tax that shows up somewhere. There's the hearth tax. There's the house tax, window tax, poll books. They have male servants tax. They have tobacco and snuff duty. There it is, the hair powder tax. So again, I found it very interesting just looking at the number of different kinds of documents that will contain our ancestors' names. Some of them we're very familiar with, like census records, but a lot of these we're not necessarily familiar with. So I think it's useful just to see the wide range of sources that we can consult to look for our ancestors. Now, I searched in the Family Search website for hearth tax Yorkshire. There are 29 results, and you can see these are all the hearth tax lists. Now, not all of these are available online, and not all of them are the original images. Some of these are transcripts that have been published, but to give you an example, here is the hearth tax records for York. And you'll notice they're in with the quarter session records film. So the kind of information you're going to get is the person's name, their titles. So the nice thing is it does show if they are a widow or widower. It gives the parish, it gives the number of hearths. So you get some good information there. And to give you some idea, I mentioned a lot of these are in with the quarter session records. If we scroll down and take a look at the film details, we've got taxes or assessments for poor relief. We've got the hearth tax. We've got window tax from 1740 to 1778. So if we take a look at this record here, and if I look at the film details to see, this is the window tax record. So if I scroll to the top, it's saying the number of windows. So this first entry, they've got 6 windows. It's giving the rate that they've assigned. And it's saying inhabited houses, the tax, it gives the rent in this case. And this column here is also indicating whether the individual is a bachelor. And it will also indicate if the person is poor and therefore exempt from the tax. So you can gather information about your ancestors' social and economic status also by looking at the number of windows, because generally the larger the house, the wealthier the individual, the more windows they had. So if you take a look, like this person had 13 windows. If you scan down the list, you can see the wide range. So this person, the butcher, 11 windows, and look at their rate compared to the previous. So that information can be quite useful. And again, what I wanted to show you was when you are looking for these records, sometimes they will be part of the parish chest. You might see them listed under overseers accounts. Some of them are with the quarter session records. So looking at the details, you see the poor rate books. You see various subscription books. Anytime money was collected or paid out, you've got a chance of finding your ancestor's name in the records. And sometimes that's all you need, is some record to place your ancestor in that parish at that point in time. Now, if you've got common named ancestors, it becomes more challenging to know if you've got the right entry. But these records are certainly a source that shouldn't be ignored. Now, this, if I look at the details, this is the overseers of the poor accounts. So this is what they call the poor rate records for the parish of Selby. So the kind of information you're getting, again, I'll just enlarge this a bit. We've got the name of the occupier of that property. It also gives you the owner's name, the description of the property. In this case, it's a house and shop. The place where it's located, it's marketplace. And it gives the rental, the rateable value, and it's the amount collected. So this is, again, useful information that would tell me more about my ancestors, where they were living, how they were living. Now, I mentioned there are many different kinds of taxes. Another one is the poll tax, which is a head tax or personal tax, which started in 1222. So in England, we've got these taxes from 1377 to 1380. And this is an example of the kind of information that you would find in these documents. So you notice the nice thing is it doesn't just list the head of household. In this case, it's identifying the individual and his wife. And it gives the occupation and the tax. So these poll tax records are great in that so often what you're seeing is just the head of the household listed. But in this case, it will allow you to link to hopefully family units, since often it's mentioning the wife's name. So for that reason alone, I think it's a really useful reference. So this Wiki, Family Search Wiki page gives details about poll tax records. There is also a research wiki page for other kinds of documents that are taxes or that will list details about our ancestors. And some of them, like this free and voluntary present. So after they had their various revolutions or disputes, and then the king was restored. The king, of course, was quite broke, so they would have a free and voluntarily or voluntary assessment, basically, where it would be an opportunity for all of the subjects to contribute funds to the king's coffers. And their comment in the description of that particular record was, yes, it was voluntary, but since they were keeping records of who contributed and who didn't, it was probably in their best interest to contribute something so that the king wouldn't be looking at them as, this person didn't contribute. I wonder if that means they don't support me. And we've talked about land taxes before in the valuation records, but there is some information here on land tax. Now, National Archives also has some taxation guides. Most of their information is not available online to download as digital images. You'd have to visit Q or arrange for someone else to look at the records for you. The exception, though, is a finding aid, this database, where you can look to see just what kinds of tax records are available. And I'll just show you that particular database. So you come to this page, and what's interesting is you can choose to search either this bottom section where you can search by types of documents. So do you want individual assessments? Do you want lists of jurors or places or receipts? What I found most useful was this middle section here, where you can sort by tax type. So if we scroll through the list, I could say, I want to see the hearth tax information, or I want to see income tax, parishes, parish subsidies, poll tax on sheep. So you can take a look at what is available and choose to limit your search. So if we search on hearth tax and click search the database, you get this list, and these are your document reference numbers. Now you can look at the details of any one of these entries by clicking the appropriate details button. And if you click see the catalog entry, that's going to take you in to the Discovery catalog with the details, and I could click on it. And so that's the information that you would need to order up these documents to go view them at Q. The National Archives does have a number of different research guides that are worth looking at. So what I showed you previously was their general taxation guide, but they also have one for taxes before 1689. So it goes into details about taxes in the medieval and the early modern periods. It goes into more information on that E179 database, because that database is covering primarily the early taxes. There is also medieval customs accounts. So there's a research guide on that. We've also got a guide that talks about pipe rolls, which were the financial records of the crown. We've also got information on the Board of Stamps, Taxes, Excise, Inland Revenue. So all these different sources, as I said, there is a lot of information in the National Archives, but for those of us who don't live close enough to go visit, it's more difficult to research. You'll also find some of these tax records in the local county record archives. The other website I wanted to introduce is this one called medievalgenealogy.org.uk. This is the subsidy and taxes information page. And if you look down, there's all kinds of information on different taxes. This is taxation and other lists on the same website. And this section here is split by location. You can see all these pipe rolls. And if we click on one of them, this is a publication of the Pipe Roll Society that is on the Internet Archives, so you can freely look at these records. They are transcripts, and browse them. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. Don't forget to download the handout. You'll find the link in the video description at the bottom of your screen. You may need to click Show More to see the handout links. Thanks for watching.